Okay, let's start with this. What if you could do anything? I mean, literally anything and face zero consequences.
Right.
And not just that, but what if everyone around you actually thought it was a good thing, even virtuous? Would your own idea of right and wrong
It
just
doesn't.
change?
That really cuts to the core, doesn't it? How much
Yeah.
our own moral compass is, well, influenced by what everyone else thinks.
Yeah.
We like to believe our values are solid like rock, but that need to fit in, to be accepted, it's
Mm.
surprisingly powerful. It can definitely shift what we even see as good.
Okay, so picture this then. History.
Mm-hmm.
Not rewritten by some dictator, but just by popular opinion. Everyone wants the nicer, easier story.
Uh-huh.
Does the actual factual past evaporate?
Mm-hmm.
Or does our collective belief, forge a new reality entirely?
Well, that hits on a huge question. Is reality fixed, or is it something we kind of co-create?
Right.
If what we all agree on shapes our understanding, then maybe the past isn't this static thing. Maybe it is as fluid as the stories we tell about it. Makes you question what historical truth even means.
I remember holding back something painful from a friend once. I genuinely thought I was helping, sparing them.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing their relief, my life felt, well, it felt justified, almost kind. But was that real compassion, or were we just like creating this little bubble together where the hard stuff didn't exist?
That's a tightrope everyone walks, I think. Truth versus perceived kindness. That instinct to shield someone, it's strong.
Totally.
But it forces the question, does making things comfortable right now actually serve us better in the long run than facing a difficult truth, however painful?
And it's weird because we say we want authenticity, right? We champion transparency.
Yeah, constantly.
Yet look at our online lives, they're highlight reels, perfectly curated. And we actually reward the most convincing performances, don't we?
You.
So is this big desire for truth we talk about? Is it just another convenient story we tell ourselves?
That tension says so much about truth in the digital age. Wanting that online validation, the likes, the shares, it can absolutely overshadow just being genuine.
So it becomes a performance of authenticity.
It's exact.
It's not the real thing. It makes you ask, are we chasing truth or are we just chasing applause?
Okay, think about cancel culture. One post goes viral, boom, collective outrage. Someone's whole story seems rewritten overnight.
The speed is incredible.
Does the sheer volume of people shouting that something is true actually make it true? Or is it just noise?
That speed, how fast those online narratives lock in, that's a real danger. There's potential for the outrage to just completely outrun the facts or any kind of due process.
Yeah.
Just because a belief is intense and amplified by social media doesn't automatically mean it's valid. Not at all.
So what if the truth you believe about yourself, like your basic goodness, how smart you think you are, what if it's just a story you've been told, reinforced by your own little echo chamber? What happens when you step outside that comfortable bubble?
That forces us to look at where our self-perception actually comes from. If who you think you are leans too heavily on others agreeing with you.
It becomes incredibly fragile the moment someone sees it differently.
Yeah.
Makes you think, how much of me is actually me? And how much is just a reflection of who's around me?
I knew this community once, totally captivated by this really charismatic leader.
Okay.
Doubts were whispered at first, then just silence. The truth was simply whatever he said it was. And when it all inevitably fell apart years later,
Yeah.
who's responsible? Him. Or all the people who chose to believe, who willingly shut down their own judgment.
That dynamic really shows the pull of charisma, doesn't it? And how easily people can hand over their critical thinking for that feeling of security, of certainty, of belonging.
Yeah, the certainty is key.
But it also brings up that crucial point about individual responsibility. Even when you're part of a group, you still made a choice.
Okay, here's a big one. Imagine a lie. Just one lie. But it guarantees total societal harmony, universal happiness, no more chaos.
The ultimate utilitarian dilemma.
Would that lie be more valuable than a messy, disruptive truth? And I mean, who on earth gets to make that call?
That's the classic ethics puzzle, isn't it? The ends versus the means. Sure, a seemingly good lie might bring short-term stability.
Right, peace and quiet.
But building a whole society on a lie, that raises huge questions about what happens down the road and, what a truly just society even looks like. Is it just one without conflict?
We always hear that phrase, the truth will set you free.
Right, it's everywhere.
But what if the real truth is that we're actually more comfortable inside our own little prisons? Limitations built on lies we all agree on. What if actual freedom is terrifying when the bars are made of stuff we all nodded along to?
That flips the saying right over. It suggests there's this deep psychological resistance to any truth that might shatter our cozy illusions.
Exactly.
And maybe the familiar chains of lie we all share just feel safer than stepping out into the unknown territory of facing things as they actually are.
Think about history. Stuff that was once considered absolute truth, subjugating whole groups of people, denying basic rights.
Yeah, things we find abhorrent now.
These weren't fringe ideas, they were mainstream beliefs. So, what accepted truths are we living by right now that people in the future will look back on and condemn as just monstrous lies?
History is such a powerful teacher there, often uncomfortable. It shows how wrong collective consensus can be.
Definitely.
What we totally accept as normal or true today could easily be seen as a massive error tomorrow.
Mm.
It really pushes us to question the foundations of what we believe right now.
So, take a second. You, listening, what's one lie, maybe small, maybe big, that you're currently accepting, maybe even participating in, just because it makes things easier
Uh-huh.
at work, in your relationship, about your country, your place in the world?
That's direct hit, isn't it?
Yeah.
It forces you to confront those little, maybe even unconscious trade-offs you make with truth every day.
Yeah.
And to think about what happens when they all add up. How do they shape your reality?
You might laugh at obvious propaganda, right? But how much of your own news feed, the sources you trust, the ones you think are unbiased, how much of that is just feeding you the version of reality you already prefer?
Confirmation bias.
Is it truth? Or is it just really, really well-tailored validation?
It's powerful, that bias. We're naturally drawn to stuff that confirms what we already think.
Yeah.
It's easy to mistake that comfortable echo chamber for the objective world.
Okay, extreme scenario. One single lie guarantees global peace forever.
Wow.
But the cost. It erases something fundamental about being human from our collective memory, something maybe painful but essential. Would you choose that lie? And if everyone genuinely believed in that fake peace, would the erased truth even matter anymore?
That hypothetical really forces the issue, doesn't it? The potential trade-offs between a seemingly perfect outcome and, well, the integrity of truth itself.
Right. What are we sacrificing?
It brings up huge questions about what it means to be human. Is a manufactured paradise built on forgetting really a paradise at all?
Think about marketing, advertising, politics. Whole industries thrive on crafting narratives.
Absolutely. Storytelling is key.
They might bend reality, maybe stretch the truth, but they resonate just enough to nudge your choices, shape your beliefs. Are we just complex animals reacting to the most convincing story, whether it's true or not?
That really highlights the power of rhetoric, of a well-told tale, how it can shape behavior.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, how many of our decisions are actually ours? Or are they just responses to the best fiction we've been presented with?
Quickfire. Your doctor gives you a sugar pill, says it's potent medicine. You believe it, you get better. Lie or cure.
Ooh, tricky. Placebo effect.
Your partner fakes being happy to save the relationship. Deception or devotion.
Huh. Depends on the motive, maybe, and the outcome.
A foundational myth unites an entire nation, gives them identity, but it's historically inaccurate. Falsehood or foundation.
Those scenarios just obliterate the clean lines we want to draw between truth and lies, don't they?
Total.
Context, consequences, they can totally change how we see deception. It really challenges the idea that truth is always symbol, always absolute, always the best thing.
I talk a big game about wanting raw, unfiltered truth. Yet I know I edit my own stories constantly, make myself look a little better, maybe a bit smarter, more likable. If I can't even be fully honest with myself about my own little manipulations, how can I demand perfect honesty from the world?
Recognizing our own inconsistencies there, that's huge. We often hold everyone else to a way higher standard than we hold ourselves.
Guilty.
It just highlights how complex and, yeah, often hypocritical our relationship with honesty really is.
You know the saying, truth is like surgery, it hurts, but it heals?
Heard it a million times.
But what if? What if some wounds aren't meant to close neatly? What if that healing we talk about is just scar tissue, shared denial, built up by people too afraid to face the actual pain underneath?
That's a much more nuanced take on truth's healing power. Sometimes, yeah, trying too hard to just get over the discomfort leads us straight into embracing comfortable lies.
Right.
And that prevents a deeper, more authentic kind of reckoning with whatever the reality is.
And maybe sometimes the issue isn't even the lie itself, it's us. It's our desperate need for certainty.
The craving for answers.
A comforting lie, even one you kind of see through, can feel a lot safer, way more appealing than a messy, ambiguous truth where you don't know what's what.
That taps into our fundamental human dislike of uncertainty. That anxiety that comes with ambiguity, it can really drive us towards simple answers, even if those answers are just plain wrong.
Look online, speaking your truth. Often that just seems to mean shouting your opinion louder and louder until anyone who disagrees just gives up and gets drowned out.
Yeah, it can definitely devolve into that.
Is that genuine truth-telling? Or is it just the loudest voice in the echo chamber convincing itself it speaks for everyone?
That critique of online discourse points to a critical difference. Seeking truth versus aggressively pushing your own beliefs. Volume doesn't equal validity. Vehemence doesn't make it true.
Okay, gut check time. Be honest with yourself. Have you ever just gone along with opinions you didn't really agree with just to keep the peace? Avoid an argument?
Social harmony.
Have you ever, like, spiced up a story to make it land better, make it more dramatic or funnier?
Probably everyone has, to some degree.
Right. So if most of us do these little things fairly often, does that collective minor dishonesty actually create a new kind of unspoken social agreement, a layer of accepted untruth?
When you normalize those small deceptions, it does raise big questions. About trust, definitely. And about the subtle ways our shared sense of reality gets warped by these seemingly tiny falsehoods piling up.
I heard this story once about a family whose whole identity was built around this ancestor, this hero figure, who was completely made up.
Interesting.
The kids knew it wasn't real as they grew up, but they all played along. That shared fiction, that lie, became this incredibly powerful bond between them. So what matters more there? The factual family tree or the story they all chose to live inside together?
That anecdote is a perfect illustration of how powerful narrative is,
Mm.
how it shapes who we think we are, how it connects us.
Yeah.
It really highlights that tension between objective fact and the subjective realities we build through believing things together, participating in the story.
Now let's flip the script entirely. What if the people we label conspiracy theorists, what if they aren't necessarily more wrong, but just perceive a different collective lie than the one we accept?
Hmm, that's a challenging thought.
Could what you consider undeniable facts be, from their perspective, just another part of the delusion they see through?
That kind of perspective taking forces something really important, intellectual humility.
Yeah, like, hey, we don't have all the answers.
Exactly. What we think is absolute truth is almost always filtered through our own lenses, personal, cultural. Others are just operating with different filters, different perceived realities.
Most of us probably trust science, right? We believe in data.
Generally, yes.
But science evolves. Consensus shifts. Things once considered fact get overturned by new evidence. Did truth itself change? Or just our understanding? And think about all the scientific truths from the past that we now see as completely outdated, even harmful.
That's a great reminder that even our most rigorous ways of knowing are always works in progress. They're subject to revision.
Always refining.
The search for scientific truth isn't about finding final answers. It's an ongoing process. It demands being willing to adapt, to admit the limits of what we know right now.
Think about the Cold War. Two superpowers, two completely different constructed realities based on opposing ideologies.
Mutually exclusive truth.
Each saw the other's entire system as a fundamental lie. Millions lived, fought, died based on these competing truths. Who was right? Or were they both just incredibly powerful competing stories?
That history really shows how deeply embedded ideologies can shape entire worldviews, often with tragic results. It underlines the danger of being too certain, too absolute in our convictions, and the critical need for self-reflection, even at a huge societal level.
Okay, what if truth isn't this static thing out there waiting to be found?
Go on.
What if it's more like an ongoing act of creation, a constant negotiation, often unspoken, between whatever objective reality exists and our deep collective human need to believe in something?
That's a radical idea.
And if enough of us reach a consensus on that created truth, does it just become the reality we live in? Does belief make it real?
It challenges our whole understanding. It suggests reality might be more fluid, more shaped by our agreements and shared beliefs than we usually like to think.
So follow that thread. What if your whole sense of self, your core beliefs, your values, everything you think makes you you, is built on a foundation of convenient lies? Lies accepted by your culture, your family, your friends.
That's unsettling.
If you could somehow strip all those fictions away, what essential part of you would actually be left?
That thought experiment really makes you confront how fragile the foundations of our identity might be.
Yeah.
It raises deep questions about how authentic our beliefs really are, how much is truly ours, versus how much is just inherited, absorbed, accepted without question.
And even after exploring all this, you might still want to believe in some kind of bedrock objective truth, right?
Yeah.
Something real independent of
It's
us.
a comforting thought,
Yeah.
a default setting almost.
But what if, when you get right down to the very bottom,
Hmm?
there just isn't one? What if that bedrock simply doesn't exist?
That final question leaves us hanging, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With this fundamental, maybe unanswerable query about the nature of reality itself, it challenges that deep human gut feeling that there must be one single absolute truth out there.
You know, the most dangerous lie isn't the one whispered in secret. It's the one shouted by the majority and just silently accepted by everyone else.
And remember that first question about doing something wrong by having everyone call it right. Does that nagging feeling, that sense of wrongness, just dissolve into the crowd's approval? Or does it persist, maybe buried deep beneath the surface of that shared lie?
If this whole conversation has maybe unsettled your own ideas about what's real, try sharing that feeling. Talk to someone whose beliefs you usually bump up against. Maybe something new can come out of just admitting that shared uncertainty.
Or, consider this, what if our most fiercely defended truths are really just complex defense mechanisms? Shields against the scary thought that maybe there's no inherent meaning. Is a comfortable shared lie actually a better way to live than facing a stark individual truth alone?
We're so quick to call out fake news out there.
Right, external threats.
But what if the most damaging lies are the ones we tell ourselves about ourselves, and then we project those onto the world, demanding everyone else validate them?
We build entire virtual worlds now, craft these detailed digital personas. Are they any less real than the identity shaped by social pressure and unspoken agreements in the physical world? Where does the simulation even begin? Is it all simulation?
Imagine a courtroom. Everyone, jury, judge, lawyers, maybe even the defendant, is absolutely convinced an innocent person is guilty. Does their united, unwavering beliefs somehow create guilt? Or does it just show the terrifying power of a shared delusion taking hold?
Try this. Make a quick mental list of the unquestionable truths in your community, your circle, the things everyone just knows.
Okay.
Now, be really honest. How many are based on solid, verifiable facts? And how many are built on faith or tradition, or maybe just the fear of being kicked out if you question them?
You get so invested in your group's truth that questioning it doesn't even occur to you anymore. You call that loyalty. But maybe, is it also just the quiet shutting down of your own critical thinking?
It reminds me of what a scientist said: raw data is neutral. Truth is the story we weave around it. And those stories, they change a lot.
So, if a lie protects someone vulnerable, is it morally okay in that specific moment?
That's the gray area.
And flip side, if telling a harsh truth would absolutely crush someone's hope, is that an act of cruelty? It's not just about facts anymore, it's about impact. But then, who gets to decide which impact matters most?
You might think of yourself as someone who'd bravely challenge a lie everyone else believes.
We all like to think that.
But think about how often you scroll past misinformation online, especially if it kind of fits what you already think. That passive bystander isn't some other person. It's often us, comfortable inside our own preferred story.
And you don't need some grand conspiracy for a lie to become truth for people.
No, not at all.
All it really takes is enough people being too tired or too scared or maybe just too comfortable to bother asking the hard questions.
So who's writing the truth you live by? Your upbringing, algorithms, your own fears and anxieties. If you don't even know who the author is, are you really living your truth or just acting out someone else's script?
I used to think I was a real truth seeker. Noble quest. Uh-huh.
Then I had this sinking feeling. I was mostly just collecting evidence. Evidence to back up the truths I had already decided were mine. The quest wasn't for truth. It was for confirmation.
It brings Nietzsche to mind. That which needs to be proved to be true is not true. Maybe the lies we argue for the hardest are the ones we secretly know are hollow.
There's usually some big collective lie that a society tells itself. Something so fundamental that actually saying it out loud would disrupt everything. You can probably sense it in your own society, maybe see the edges of it, but naming it feels impossible. What is that unspoken lie?
And think about this. Have you ever just stayed quiet when someone said something clearly false? Just to avoid a fight, avoid the awkwardness?
How many times?
In that silence, didn't you kind of vote for the falsehood? Didn't you add a tiny bit of weight to its acceptance as truth right then and there?
Maybe the real truth isn't one big truth with a capital T. Maybe it's more like lots of smaller truths. Competing, contradicting, constantly being built and
Like
rebuilt.
a marketplace of truths. Yeah. And our lives are just about choosing which ones we align with. That's not just philosophy, that's just how people operate, isn't it?
Or maybe the game isn't even about finding truth. Maybe it's more like we're all unconsciously auditioning for the role of the person who believes the right lies.
Wow, the right
Yeah, the
lies.
socially acceptable ones, the ones that let you fit in, navigate the world smoothly.
So here's the ultimate choice, maybe. The lie everyone believes offers belonging, connection, community. The truth. It might mean isolation, being cast out. Which do you pick? Your personal integrity or staying connected to the tribe?
And you can't really start dismantling a societal lie until you admit, honestly, the comfort it gave you once, the benefit you got from it.
Right, own your past belief.
The real shame isn't that you believed it, it's pretending you never found any shelter there.
Imagine tomorrow scientists prove beyond doubt that some cherished cultural belief, the absolute bedrock of your community, is false, factually wrong. Would your community adapt, integrate this new uncomfortable information? Or would they attack the scientists, call them liars?
And remember, your silence when faced with a popular lie, it's not neutral, it's a vote. It's a brick in the wall that helps that lie become someone else's solid, unquestionable truth.
When future generations look back at us, at the truths we hold so dear right now, our convenient stories, our accepted falsehoods, what blind spots will they see clear as day? And why are we choosing right now, consciously or not, to be blind to them?
Perhaps the most basic truth is that we're storytelling animals. That's what we do. And the most powerful stories, true or not, are the ones that end up shaping our shared reality.
Yeah.
So maybe being human just is living inside a fiction we all collectively agree on.
I know I've clung to lies, personally, because the truth just felt too hard, too painful to deal with.
I think that's universal, absolutely.
The real horror isn't that lies exist, it's our deep human need for them sometimes.
And we're all complicit, aren't we? To some extent. In the bigger illusions we live inside, every time we just nod along, every time we don't question,
We reinforce it.
we add another layer to that shared belief structure. But maybe just seeing the structure, recognizing it exists, is the first step toward consciously choosing which parts we actually want to live in.
So back to that first question. Can a lie become truth if enough people believe it? Maybe the more important question, the one to really sit with, is what are you going to do when you realize that something being presented as solid truth is actually just a widely held opinion?
Truth isn't some fixed point you arrive at. It exists in that constant tension, the push and pull between what you're told, what you believe deep down, and what you find the courage to actually question. You have to embrace that tension, live in it.
If this deep dive felt like trying to untangle a really messy knot in how you think about all this, maybe listen again. The lies we tell ourselves. They're often the sneakiest ones, the hardest to spot the first time around.
And if this whole conversation made you question even one thing you held as certain, share that feeling. Share that discomfort with someone else who's willing to be honest, willing to sit with uncertainty. The dialogue itself is where the real value lies.
This has been The Deep Dive. We're not here handing out answers. We're here to challenge why you believe what you believe, especially when everyone seems to agree.